Masechet Menaḥot Daf Yod. The Mishnah taught kamatz bismol. If the Kohen does kemitzah with his left hand, then it is no good. Mile. What's the source? Amar bi zerada amar kera. Vayakreb et hamincha vaymale chapo mimenna. Kaf ze eni yodea mahu. So we quote a pasuk is from Parashat Shemini. One of the offerings that was performed on that day of consecration was a mincha offering. And the pasuk says that the mincha offering was presented, and he, the Kohen, filled his hand from it. Okay, it doesn't say which hand. So this hand that it says, I don't know which one it is. How can we figure it out? כשהוא אומר, ולקח הכהן מלוג השמן, ויסק על כף הכהן הסמלית. כאן סמלית, הכל מקום שנאמר כף, אינו אלא ימין. In the context of the mesorah, part of his purification process is that the Kohen will take from the log of oil and pour it into the palm of his left hand. And so since it says left hand explicitly here, that means that on other places, it must be right. Otherwise, why'd you have to say left hand? It means if you don't say anything, if you just say kaf, as it says, kapo mimena, we would assume right. Right is the default, unless it goes out of its way and specifies that it's left. So since it says left and mesorah, we can assume that the default is right. Wait a second, how can you learn that? Maybe we need the word left here for its own context to teach us that specifically you need the left. Otherwise, you might think it could be this one or that one. And so we answer, Semalit acharina ketib. There's another word, Semalit, there. So that's what it's coming to teach. Let's look at the context for a minute, because we're going to see a few pisukim from this context. Part of the mesorah is the procedure for his tahara is he has to bring a korban asham, and the pasuk before the Semalit one says v'lakach hakohen midam ha'asham v'natanu kohen al tenuch ozen hamitaher haymanit v'abon yado haymanit v'abon raglo haymanit. That the first thing that's put on the body of the mesorah is blood of the korban asham, and he puts it on the right ear and the right hand and the right big toe, the right thumb and the right big toe, and so that is all done on the right. And then after that it says, and then he takes some of the oil and he puts it into the palm of his left hand. And next pasuk again says left hand. Then he will dip his finger into his right finger into the palm of his left hand, and he will sprinkle it 7 times towards the Kodesh. And then from the rest of it, he will put on Itana Kohen al Tenuch, Ozen Mitarmanit, Vabon Ermanit, Vabon Raglohimanit, al Dam Ha'asham. So after sprinkling from the oil 7 times towards the Kodesh, then he takes from the rest of it and he uses that to place on the earlobe, the right earlobe of the mesorah who's becoming tahor, and on his thumb and on his big toe. On the same place, al dam ha'asham. This is going to be significant also because he already put the blood of the asham in those 3 places, and so he puts the oil on the same 3 places. Anyway, for now, we are focusing on the second time that it says semalit. And so since I have one time it says semalit for its own context, and the other semalit is to teach us that over here it specifies semalit. But if it doesn't say anything, then the default is that it's the right hand. Hold on, there's a rule, one of the midrashic methodological rules that says a limitation after a limitation actually is an inclusion. Kind of like 2 wrongs don't make a right, but kind of like 2 negatives make a positive, something like that. If you have a restriction and the restriction on a restriction is actually going to be an expansion, because then you're restricting less. So since it says semalit twice, maybe the second semalit is actually coming to include a right hand. And so that's the way we could interpret these 2 lefts, and therefore we couldn't learn anything about other places. Semalit acharina ketib, kan semalit ve'en acher semalit. Why actually there's a 3rd time it says semalit. We read the ones over here in Pasuk 14 and 15. These Pasukim are talking about a mesorah who is rich, and brings expensive korbanot. But then later on, the Pesukim say, V'imdalu, if the Mesorah is poor, then he can bring cheaper things. He still has to bring a korban asham, that's an animal, but then he can bring birds, and the asham is the same thing. And then it says regarding the Mesorah, also the word semalit, twice. Min Hashem yisok HaKohen al kaf HaKohen hasemalit. So here also it's repeating for the poor Mesorah twice semalit. So if you had only two of them, you're right. If you would say semalit, semalit, maybe that would mean actually you do it the right hand. But the third semalit comes and says that here you actually do need a left hand, and in no other case is there a left hand. So now we're good. That the Mesorah needs, for the Mesorah, you have to put the oil in his left hand, but not any other place, and therefore, for Kemitzah of Korban Mincha, that would have to be in the right hand. But then we question that again. You can say the other way around, that this would be a paradigm for all others. Just like here, a lot of times the Torah will say something in one place, and then you learn that as a binyan av to all other places. So just like here with Mesorah, you need to use the left hand. So too everywhere you need to use the left hand. Why wouldn't you treat this like a binyan av? And the answer is arba'a semalit kitibe tere be'ani utere be'ashir. Actually, there's four. We only dealt with three of them so far. There's four of them, two for the poor and two for the rich Mesorah. The rich ones came first, and then the poor ones came afterwards in the next Pesukim. And so, since it has, if you only had three of them, then in fact, I might think that this is a binyan av. But the four come to say, no, this is only for a Mesorah. You have uses the left hand, but in all other places, it would be the right hand. Amar le Rabbi Yirmiyah le Rabbi Zera al bohen yado himanit v'al bohen raglo himanit dichti b'shemen de Mesorah ashir lamali. Now that we quoted these various Pesukim and all the times that it says semalit, now we're going to ask, why does it say so many times that you put it on the Mesorah, on his right limbs? So Rabbi Yirmiyah asks Rabbi Zera, this pasuk that says on it's talking about the rich Mesorah, and it says on his right ear and thumb and toe, why do I need that pasuk? Ta'katab al dam ha'asham. It already says that it's in the same place that you put the asham. And in fact, there's many questions, because we're also going to bring in the poor. Let's look at the Pesukim once again. Pasuk 14 is talking about dam ha'asham. And it says you put it on all the right limbs. Okay, fine. So I know that the blood goes there. And then it says regarding the shemen, that's the leftover, you put it also, and it lists all the right limbs again. And after that it says al dam ha'asham. Now it really could have said just al dam ha'asham, and I would have known that's in all those places. So putting it on the right and the right and the right, that is all extra and not necessary. That's talking about the rich Mesorah. And then for the poor Mesorah, again it says he puts it on, the oil on, the right and the right and the right, and then it says al mekom dam ha'asham. And so this also, if you just said al mekom dam ha'asham, I would know it's on the right. And anyway, I could assume it's on the right because everything else is the same. The difference between the rich and the poor is just the other korbanot that they bring. Is it from animals or from birds? But this procedure is exactly the same for both of them. And so why do you have to say this and why do you have to say this again? And how come before it just said al dam ha'asham, and here it adds the word makom, al mekom dam ha'asham? So we have to answer all these questions. So we have the beginning of an answer here, because it says chad lachshir sedadin v'chad lifsol sideh sedadin. So one of these, let's assume that that's talking about the rich person, where it says the right three times. All that is to include the sides of the thumb and the big toe. In other words, if it just said al dam ha'asham, I would know that you could put it on the toe, on the top of the toe where the nail is. But the extra words that it says on the right big toe, that includes on the side of the toe. And then when it says it again regarding the poor one, and it says it has to be on the right, that is to exclude the side of the side. Side of the side is the under, the bottom part of it. You can't put it on the bottom part, it has to be on the top part. Okay, so that's how we dealt with those three Pesukim, al dam ha'asham, and the two times that it says on the right. Al dam ha'asham, al mekom dam ha'asham lemay atu. But now we wonder, how come regarding the rich Mesorah it says al dam ha'asham, on the place where you put the blood of the asham, and for the poor it says on the al mekom, on the place. Really over here it says on the blood of the asham, literally for the rich, and on the place of the blood of the asham, it says for the poor. So why do these two pesukim come, and why are they different from each other? We need both of them. Al dam ha'asham hava amina. Ite in nitkaneach la katav rachamana al mekom, because if it just said on the blood of the asham, which it says by the rich mesorah, I would think that you have to leave the blood there. You take the asham blood, you put it on the toe and on the thumb, and then you have to leave the blood there, and you have to place the oil on top of the blood. So only if the blood is still there, then you can put the oil on it. But if the blood was wiped away, then you can't do it anymore. I might think that if it only says al dama hasham. That's why the pasuk regarding the poor mesorah says on the place of. The blood doesn't have to be there. Just you put it at the same spot. וכתב רחמנה על מקום הווה אמינה, דווקא נתקנח, אבל איתה אמה הווה חציצה, כמשמען על דם האשם. And if it only said the second pasuk in the place of, I might have think that it has to be in the place of, and you have to wipe away the blood first. So only if you put the blood there, then you have to wipe it off, and then you put the oil there. But if the blood is still there, I might think it's a chatzitzat interposition, because the oil is going on top of the blood, but it's not actually touching the skin or the nail of the mesorah himself. And so I might think it's a problem, and you might actually have to wipe it away. No, kamash malan, that's why it says al dam hasham, it can be on the blood. So either way, it could be, you could leave the blood there and put it on top of the blood, or if you could wipe away the blood and put the oil, as long as it's on the same spot. Amar Rava, מאחר דכתיב על דם האשם ועל מקום האשם, וכתיבה ימנית בדם, על בוהן ידו הימנית ועל בוהן רגלו הימנית, וכתיבי בשמן דמסורה עשיר ועני למלי. Now Rava asks, since the pasuk already said al dam ha'asham and mekom ha'asham, and it says also the right when it talks about the blood, and so why do I need al bon yadom manit, al bon manit, that it says regarding the ashir and the ani? Rava basically, we dealt with most of these cases already, but Rava is bringing them up again to ask offer another answer. So we have dam hasham, dam and mekom hasham. Fine. That we are from those two pesukim, we can figure out that the mesorah, both rich and poor, has to be done on the right. So then, why do you need these two pesukim of al bohan yado haymanit? What do they come to add? Ela amar Rava, yad likmisa, regel lachalitza, ozen lirsi'ah. And the answer is we need the extra pesukim so that you have an extra yad, so that you can make a gezerah shava with our law, which we started with, which is kemitzah. Since the pasuk says regarding kemitzah, he has to do it with his hand. And we have the word yad also regarding a mesorah, and it's an extra one. When it's something, a pasuk is extra, then you can use it for gezerah shava. So we learned that just like mesorah is with his right hand, is on his right hand, so too kemisa has to be done with his right hand. And when it says regel and regarding mesorah, and that's extra, that's also to make a gezerah shava for chalitza. When a woman has to do chalitza to her brother-in-law, then she has to take off his shoe. Which one? Which shoe? Well, since it says regel by mesorah, and it's talking about his right foot, so too the yavama does chalitza with the right, taking off the right shoe of the yavam. And ozen also is extra to make a gezerah shava, that when you have an eved ivri who wants to stay past the 6 years because he loves his master, and you have to pierce his ear, which ear do you pierce? Well, it says ozen regarding mesorah, and we know that's the mesorah's right ear, so too we do the piercing of the ear of the slave on his right ear. Semalit lemay ata, and now we ask, why do you need the second instance of semalit? Remember, there were 4 of them, but 2 by the rich person. So take out the word ani. It's not in manuscripts anyway. Regarding the second semalit that it says for a rich mesorah, why do I need that? Amar Rav Shisha bered Rav Dilif Sol Yamin de Kohen be mesorah shelo tomar. ומה במקום שלא נתרא בית השמאל, נתרא בית הימין, במקום שנתרא בית השמאל, אינו דין שנתרא בית הימין. Rav Shisha, the son of Rav Idi, explains that this is to exclude the right, using the right hand of a Kohen in a Mesorah. You might think that a Kohen can take the oil of the Mesorah and pour it into the right hand of another Kohen, and then use that for the sprinkling and for the dabbing. Now, why would you think that? So don't say this kal vachomer. So you shouldn't say, if in a place where the Torah did not include the left hand, and yet it does include the right hand, that's most sacrificial rites, you cannot use the left hand, but you can use the right hand. Then all the more so, in a place where the Torah included the left, that's for the Mesorah, all the more so you could use the right. So I might think that you can use also the right. That's why he has to say the semalit the second time, to say left and only left. Don't accept this kal vachomer. V'idach semalit. Now, why do I need yet the other semalit that it says regarding the poor person? V'yad v'regel yemanit de'ani. And it also says on the right hand and the right foot, and it says that for a poor person. And then there's so many repetitions here that it's impossible to account for all these repetitions. We tried various ways of doing it before, but each time we need three of them, we need four of them, each one undoes the other one. Lemayata, what are all these things coming for? And now that we've tried lots of different methods to say it includes this and excludes that, and it's coming to teach us other places, the last line here is much simpler. And this is probably the peshat of the Torah, as the school of Rabbi Ishmael often follows a more simple reading, Dibrat Torah Kashon B'nei Adam. And Rabbi Ishmael says a very important lesson here. Kol parasha shenimra v'nishnet lo nishnet ela b'shvil davar shenitchadesh ba. Anytime you have a paragraph in the Torah, and then it's repeated, it's only repeated for some new item that's in it. In other words, in this case, let's use this case, you have the Mesorah who's rich, and it gives you all the details of that. Now, the Mesorah who's poor is only different in a few of those details. However, the way of the Torah is not to say, oh, and if he's poor, just change these one or two things. Instead of an animal, he'll bring these two birds. It's not going to only say the differences. Rather, the way of the Torah is that if it wants to teach even just one new law, one new detail, the Torah repeats the whole thing, and just to include that new detail. And according to the Ishmael, you don't learn anything new from the repetition. The repetition is just there for the sake of that one detail that's going to be new. And therefore, if you follow the methodology of Ishmael, then all these questions go away. Everything is repeated just to fill in the whole context after that one detail needs to be added for the Metzorah who is poor. Now that we've learned some laws for which one has to use the right hand, we're going to try to find a general rule and from which we can derive whether you have to use the right hand or the left hand. Amar Rabba bar Chana Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Kol makom shenemra etzba uchuna ena ela yamin. Resh Lakish teaches that anytime there's a pasuk that says these two words, etzba and kohen, then you know that it has to be the right hand. Now, what does he mean exactly by this? So it must be, we're assuming at first that Resh Lakish means that you need both of these words together in a pasuk, etzba and kohen, and then you need the right hand. But if you have only one of these words, or the other, or none of them, then you can use the left hand. Here's an application of this rule, and actually a derivation. So regarding the korban chatat, it says that the Kohen will take the blood of the chatat with his finger. So you see the two words, kohen and finger. And we can adhere, it doesn't say which hand to use, but we can learn from the Metzorah, where it says that the Kohen will dip his finger, and it says here the right finger. So here you have the word kohen, espa, and you have the right, and it says right explicitly. Therefore, anytime it has the word kohen and espa, then it means the right. So that's the general rule. But if you have only one or the other, that's where we're assuming it means now, then no, you could use the left. But we have a problem with that. Kamas bismol pasul. But regarding the Metzorah, it only says the word kohen. Here's an example of a pasuk like that regarding sotah. It says kamatz hakohen mina minchat azkarata. So you're doing kemitza. It says the word kohen. It doesn't say the word etzba, but we know from a Mishnah that if you'd use the left hand for kemitza, it's no good. By the way, something very interesting here is that you see explicitly the Gemara knows the halacha already. It knows the halacha from the Mishnah, and we're trying to back in the derivation from the Pesukim. So we're looking for some methodology, some rule that we can apply to all the Pesukim and arrive at the Mishnah halacha that we already know. So we're not actually deriving the laws from the Pesukim. We know the laws already from the oral tradition. It's from the Mishnah. And now we want to see how to connect it to the Pesukim in a consistent way. But this one would be inconsistent with that rule because here you have only Kohen, but it has to be with the right. Amar Rava, o etzba o kehuna. So Rava explains, no, it doesn't mean you need both etzba and kehuna. One word or the other is sufficient, and then it has to be with the right hand. Good, that works for kemitza. Amar le Abaye, hareho lachat ebarim lakebesh. Abaye says, no, but I have a problem with this because I'm going to give you an example where we have one of these words, and yet you can use your left hand. And the issue here is bringing the limbs of a korban tamid, a korban olah, to the ramp of the mizbeach, where it says the word kehuna. Tichtiv v'kirib hakohen etakol mizbeach v'amar mo'azo halachat ebarim lakebesh. Pasuk says that the kohen will bring it close, everything close to the mizbeach, and the tradition is about this, that this is referring to bringing the limbs onto the ramp. You bring it onto the ramp first before you bring it onto the fire itself on top of the mizbeach. Utnan, haregel shel yamin bismol ubet ora lahutz. There's a Mishnah, Masechet Tamid, that teaches that you take the right leg of the animal with his left hand. The Kohen holds it with his left hand, and the skin side is going to be towards the outside. So you see here that holachat evarim you can do with your left hand, even though it says the word Kohen. So this goes against Rava's interpretation, and it says either or. It has to be with the right hand. Here's something that has one of them, but yet it can be with the left hand. So we answer, Ki amrina no espa o kehuna bedavar me'akev kapara. This rule, that if you have either the word espa or kehuna, then it has to be the right hand. That's only for a matter that is required for atonement. That would be the four major activities that you do with a korban, the last one being the sprinkling of the blood. But the burning of the limbs is not required for atonement. If you didn't burn the limbs, the korban still fulfills its purpose. And so that's why etzba or kehuna is only for the really important activities that has to be with the right. But the other ones, even if it says etzba or kehuna, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be with the right. It could be with the left, and that's why the holachat evarim is there. But now we'll bring a counterexample to get this answer. Kabbalah, receiving the blood, that's one of the four major activities you have to do with a korban. It's required for atonement. And it says the word kehuna there. It says that they will bring the dam, zo kabbalat adam, and this is referring to, we understand the pasuk to be referring to receiving of the blood, because it says they're bringing it forth, so they're doing something with it, so it means they have to receive it. Utnan kibel bismol pasal. Rabbi Shimon machshir. Now, even though Tanakama says if you receive it with the left, it's no good. So actually, this works perfectly well according to Tanakama. It says the word kohanim, and this is one of the essential activities, and it can't be done with the left hand. So this is consistent with the rule. The question is from Rabbi Shimon. He says you can do Kabbalah with the left hand. So how are you going to answer this for Rabbi Shimon? We say, Rabbi Shimon kamat, Rabbi Shimon tarteh ba'eh. You're asking about Rabbi Shimon? No, Rabbi Shimon has a different methodology. Rabbi Shimon thinks you need both the word etzba and the word kehuna. Rabbi Shimon's in a totally different system here. So we're good with the system for the banan. Rabbi Shimon, he requires both. Here it only says the word kohen. So therefore, only one word, kohen, then it can be done with the left. Now, is this true that Rabbi Shimon always will require both words? In order to learn that you have to use the right, and if it's only one of the words, then you can use the left. Rabbi Shimon omer, kol makom shenemar yad ena ela yamin, etzba ena ela yamin, etzba la baya kehuna, kehuna baya etzba. There's a braita that teaches that according to Rabbi Shimon, anytime the Torah pasuk says the word yad, it has to be the right. If it says the word etzba, finger, also has to be the right. If it says finger, then you don't need the word kehuna. If it says the word kehuna, you still need the word finger. In other words, all that matters, this is different from what we said before. First we said we need both words. Then you said one or the other. But Rabbi Shimon doesn't say one or the other. Actually, the only important word is etzba or yad. That means right. Kohen, doesn't matter if it says Kohen or doesn't say Kohen, that is not going to make a difference regarding teaching something about the right hand. And so you see that according to Rabbi Shimon, actually, if you just have etzba or yad, then it has to be with the right hand. And over here, in this case, it did not say etzba or yad regarding the kabbalat adam, and that's why the Shimon says it can be with the left hand. Now we ask about this rule, Ela Kohen Lamali. So why does it say the word Kohen? It says, right, V'ela v'ikribu b'nei Adon kohanim. Why does it say Kohanim here? If we're not going to learn anything from it? And the answer is we do learn something from it. Bechihuno, that he has to be wearing his priestly garments. Even if he's a fantastic Kohen, but he's not wearing Bigdei Kohen, then he's not serving as a Kohen at that time. He's not in his role, and then it's no good. So we learn a different halacha from the word Kohen. So we need that word, but it doesn't affect anything about right hand or left hand. And so Rabbi Shimon says, yeah, you can do Kabbalah with the left hand. Now, further question on Rabbi Shimon. Ela kehuna utnan zarak bismol pasul vela palig Rabbi Shimon. Regarding sprinkling of the blood, it only says the word kehuna. Great, so kehuna, he has to wear his clothing of kehuna. But it doesn't say yad or etzba. Therefore, according to this methodology, Rabbi Shimon should say that you could use the left hand. But that's not what we say. The Mishnah teaches that if you do zirika with the left hand, it's no good. And Rabbi Shimon has no disagreement in the Mishnah about it. So this seems like it's a contradiction of Rabbi Shimon's methodology. If it doesn't have either word, then it should be okay to use the left hand. It's true, but Rabbi Shimon does not disagree in a Mishnah, but the Mishnah doesn't include every opinion about everything. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was selective in the Mishnah; he couldn't include everything, and then we look at a Braita to fill in the details. So Abaye says, actually there is a Braita about this. Tanya kibel bismol pasul. Rabbi Shimon machshir. Zarak bismol pasul. Rabbi Shimon machshir. Braita teaches that if one does receiving of the blood in the left hand, it's no good. Rabbi Shimon says it's okay. That we knew already. Here's a new thing, that if you sprinkle the blood with the left hand, Tanakama says it's no good. Rabbi Shimon says it's okay. So yeah, Rabbi Shimon is in fact consistent with his methodology. Yad likmisa lamali. Now we go back to Rabbanan and ask, the Rabbanan, according to our understanding, was if it says either yad or kehuna, either one means you have to use the right hand as long as you're dealing with one of the four essential activities. Well, if so, that which Rava said before on Amud Aleph, that we have a gezerah shava yad, that we learn from the Mesorah. It says the word yad, and it says yad also regarding kemitza. And Rava said, we learned from there, just like for a Mesorah, you have to put it on his right hand. So too, kemitza, where it doesn't say right or left, we learn the Kohen has to use his right hand for kemitza. But lamali, why do I need that? It says the word kohen regarding kemitza, and you just told me that the word kohen by itself, according to the Rabbanan, not Rabbi Shimon, either word by itself requires the right hand. And here you have the word kehuna, and it's one of the four essential activities. So why do you need the gezerah shava? And the answer is the komes, the kiddush kometz. One is for doing the kemitza itself, and the other one is for sanctifying that kometz. Once he takes the handful, then that handful he has to put into a service vessel. So that's step 2. So if I only had one of them, I said, okay, maybe the kemitza has to be with the right hand, but then he could put it in the left hand and use the left hand to place it in the bowl. But that's what we need, the gezerah shava. From the Pesukim itself, the word kehuna, that I would know kemitza. Yes, it can be it has to be done with the right hand. But I need the gezerah shava to teach me also that the kometz, that the sanctification of the kometz into the bowl also has to be with the right hand. Good. We solved the problem for Rabbanan. However, Rabbi Shimon, delaba kiddush kometz, Ulman de'amar nameh de'ba'ai kiddush kometz l'Rabbi Shimon u'bismol achshure machshar yad Rava lamali. Fine. According to Rabbi Shimon, there's a source and a machloket about this on Daf 26. That according to Rabbi Shimon, you do not need to put the kometz into another vessel to sanctify it. And that's one opinion. Or even according to the other opinion that says you do have to sanctify it, but even according to the Bishimon, but you could do it with the left hand. So according to the Bishimon, either that you don't need to sanctify the kometz at all, or that even if you do, you could use the left hand. What is he going to do with the gezer hashava of yad and yad? Well, if you say, I need the gezer hashava to teach me that kmitza itself has to be with the right hand, because according to the Bishimon, the fact that it says kohen regarding kmitza, we don't learn anything from that. The Bishimon does not learn from the word kohen by itself that has to be with the right hand. So how will the Bishimon know that the kmitza has to be done with the right hand? Maybe that's why you need the gezer hashava of yad and yad. But now we're going to show a different source that Rabbi Shimon uses to learn the right. Because according to Rabbi Shimon, he learns it from the following ruling: taught by Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Rabbi Chia. Rabbi Shimon, what is the source? According to Rabbi Shimon, that kmitza has to be done with the right hand. Because it says regarding the korban mincha that it's kodesh kodashim, it's like the chatat and it's like the asham. In what way is it like those korbanot? In this way: ba le'ovda biyad, ovda biyamin kachatat. Ba le'ovda bikli, ovda bismol ka'asham. It depends. You have a choice regarding the korban mincha. If you want to use your hand and you do the kmitza, and you don't need to put it in a second service vessel to sanctify it. He can take the kmitza with his hand, and if he wants, he can put it directly on the fire. If he does it that way, then it has to be with the right hand, just like with the korban chatat. Also, the korban chatat you have to sprinkle with the right hand, and so this would be the same thing. That's choice number one. And so you see, if we just stop there, we see that's the source, that kmitza has to be with the right hand, because we're comparing it, the pasuk compares it to a chatat. Bale ovda bikli, ovda bismol ka'asham. And if the kohen decides he wants to use a vessel, he's going to do kmitza with the right hand, and then he's going to put it into a service vessel, and then bring it close to the mizbeach in the service vessel. He can do it that way also. And we learn that from a korban asham, because a korban asham, you put the blood on the mizbeach from a vessel, not directly with the hand. And so you can use a vessel, and in that case, you could use your left hand. We saw above the case of the asham of a mesorah, where the left hand is involved, in fact, regarding the oil. So maybe that has something to do with it. So if you're going to use just the hand, then you have to use the right hand. If you're going to use a vessel, then for that part of it, you can use the left hand. In any case, we see that the Rabbi Shimon has a source already that you need kmitza. To do kmitza, you need the right hand. So back to the question, why do you need the gezer hashava of yad that Rava brought according to Rabbi Shimon? And the answer is, Lo nisracha ela lekometz de minchat choteh. Sakadatecha min ha'il, v'amar Rabbi Shimon shelo yehe korbano mehudar, ki kames la'nameh bismot tachshar kamashmalan. We need it only for the case of the mincha offering of a sinner, the korban olev yored, because I might have thought that since Rabbi Shimon himself says that why it doesn't, the minchat choteh, how come he doesn't bring any oil or frankincense? So that his korban should not be of high superior quality. He should come and be embarrassed, ashamed that he sinned. So I might think also in the manner of bringing it, that doing it on the left is okay, because this is a derogatory way to bring the mincha, to do the kmitza with the left hand, and we might think that that's appropriate for minchat chotef. So for him only, maybe the left hand would be valid. And that's why I need the gezer hashava to say, not only regarding all the other types of korban mincha, you need the right hand, that we know from this pasuk that says kachatat. But even for a minchat choteh, we might have thought that he's a sinner and he should do it with the left. That can be done with the left hand for him to show that he's disheveled and ashamed. That's why the gezer hashava comes to teach, no, a minchat choteh also needs to be with the right hand. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen.